Today in the EU, the Commission's failure to address Mercosur concerns. For 20 years, concerns over the EU partnership agreement with Argentina, Paraguay, Uruguay, and Brazil have stalled negotiations. And even after being rubber-stamped, the Mercosur deal is far from having reached wide consensus. Farmers fear an uneven playing field. Cheaper, less regulated imports could threaten their livelihoods. On Thursday, the Economy and Agricultural Commissioners Maroš, Šefčovič, and Christophe Hansen addressed these fears on the impact the Mercosur will have. After all, the deal is here, and MEPs have many questions. So who stands for and against Mercosur, and how is the Commission trying to bridge this divide? Hello and welcome. I'm your host, Giada Santana, and this is Today in the EU. Today, I'm joined in the studio by Euractiv's agrifood reporter, Maria Simon Arboleas. Hello, Maria. I think it's the first time you come on the podcast.
First time with you, not in the podcast.
Right. Well, that's all that matters. Last Thursday, we sat through a 2-hour-long parliamentary hearing where Commissioners Šefčovič and Hansen had to clarify the terms of the Mercosur deal before the Agri Committee. So we're here, 3 cappuccinos, 3 reporters, just waiting for a hearing that's about to start in 10 minutes.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, we kind of got a sneak peek this month because Šefčovič was in the Inter committee, but of course, Inter MEPs are not Agri MEPs, so we can expect it to be pretty intense this time.
But what are you expecting to come out of this meeting, really? Because it's not the first one.
I think it's going to be interesting because he's not alone. He will be joined by Hansen, so maybe we can expect...
The Commissioner for Agriculture.
Yeah, the EU Farm Chief, so we can maybe expect some sort of good cop, bad cop dynamic, because of course Hansen could be more sensitive towards MEP's concerns, so let's see how that goes.
Good morning, colleagues. Can I please ask you to take a seat because it's time to start. We have here both commissioners. Please don't waste time, so let's start.
This is the first time that it happens since the deal was struck in Montevideo last December. So before we start, can you walk us through the timeline?
Yeah, so as you said, the deal was sealed in December. There was a bit of confusion back then because we felt that we were getting to the last stretch of negotiations, but then suddenly, or quite by surprise, von der Leyen landed in Montevideo. So as we speak, the legal scrubbing is being carried on. There's also translation to all EU languages. And of course, the Commission also needs to decide on the architecture of this deal and then present a proposal to the co-legislature. So it's going to take a while, let's say.
Mm-hmm. During the hearing, we heard different MEPs, questions and appeals. There's a lot of concerns, it seems, across the board. There was even an Irish MEP, Kieran Mullooly, waving a leaflet with numbers.
I have 50 questions. I am supposed to be a co-legislator here. When will I get answers to the questions? I have outlined them again today. 50 questions. I will present each of them to you today. Please give us the courtesy of responding to that. Please give us the courtesy. This is potentially devastating for my region. I ask you 2 specific questions.
And we chased him down after the hearing to have a closer look at that document, right?
Show you the leaflet for starters, to give you a little look. So we sat down and looked at the deal as produced by the European Union, and the purpose of this was to show people just how unfair it is. For instance, when you look at the island of Ireland and you look at the Mercosur countries, the average farm size in Ireland is factually 32 hectares. In Mercosur countries, the average farm size 1,500 hectares. So it's an unfair market. Immediately, it's an unfair comparison. They have the resources and the abilities to sell extensively into Europe. And they do not, as I say, have the costs associated with health and safety, environmental concerns that we have to look after. So all of these issues are in the document. I also intend to circulate it to every MEP in the European Parliament, and we intend to ensure that it is translated for every other country. So perhaps our friends in Italy and Holland and the Netherlands may actually join us in opposition.
Have you been able to show the Commissioner this document?
I have. This is the discussion at the end. I came up to Commissioner Hansen at the end, and I said to him, "This is the document I was talking about." Mm-hmm. And I said, "But it is based on the limited information I have." I said, "You told me in the answer that it was on a website, the new information." But I said that website is 2019. So it was based on the old deal. So this document is accurate because this is based on what we know of the old deal as well. We don't have any new deal. There is no deal. There is no new Mercosur deal. It's the same botched up deal it was in 2019.
And I noted a clear divide rather than along party lines, it was more along geographical lines, borders.
Indeed. And you mentioned the Irish. They made a lot of noise during the debate, you noticed. Yeah, we know that as far as Mercosur is concerned, nationality matters maybe a bit more than ideology. So you would have liberals from certain countries slamming the deal, despite, let's say, the Renew group being a staunch defender of free trade.
And so if it's not parties that we should look at, what member states are in favor and what member states are against?
I mean, we know the fierce opponents of the deal at the moment are France and Poland. They are trying to seek allies. I mean, Ireland has already unveiled its position. It's also opposing the deal.
Yeah.
It's a bit uncertain from the Netherlands. You've seen during the hearing that Dutch MEPs, even from the centre-right EPP, are quite concerned about the potential implications of the trade agreement. We know that France and Poland have been trying to court Italy, which can be the kingmaker here, but so far it doesn't look like Rome will switch position.
It's interesting that you say that Italy might be kingmaker on this. Do you think that's why Commissioner Hansen said Parmigiano Reggiano so many times?
Bordeaux, Ribera del Duero, Conti, Parmigiano Reggiano, Tiroler Speck, Polska Vodka, Parmigiano Reggiano, Roquefort, or queso tipo Parmigiano Reggiano.
Yeah, at least twice. I agree. I mean, he also mentioned Bordeaux, so maybe a wink to France. Yeah, I mean, they're doing their best to give reassurances to farmers and, well, in last week's debate, agri-committee members. He mentioned geographical indications, as you said, but also safeguards, 1 billion worth reserve that could be triggered in case of market distortions. So they kind of put a lot of cards on the table, but it looked like it wasn't enough.
Mm-hmm. Precisely about that, getting into the specifics, one of the major concerns that MEPs raised during this hearing was about this famous 1 billion fund dedicated to farmers to address potential harm or potential, backfiring from this deal. Right after the hearing, French MEP Céline Imar from EPP told us it would be a disastrous signal to farmers.
Aujourd'hui, on dit aux agriculteurs, on vous paye parce que, en fait, on n'a plus besoin de vous. On va ouvrir la production du sucre, de l'éthanol, de la viande bovine, du Mercosur, et puis vous, on vous paye pour que vous puissiez tranquillement mettre la clé sous la porte. Symboliquement et politiquement, c'est un signal désastreux.
Now, do we have any more information? Do we know where the money will be coming from? And do we know how it's going to be divided?
I mean, I would love to give you more details, but I'm afraid not even commissioners were able to disclose them at last week's hearing. This was one of the most asked questions. How will this money be used? Under what conditions will it be triggered? But still, there's a lot of uncertainty. Also, the fate of this reserve is also a question up in the air because this would have to be budgeted in the MFF, the EU's 7-year budget. So, of course, it's in the hands of co-legislators. In any case, the Commission says it is unlikely that this reserve should be used. It's just a last resort, let's say, in case the existing safeguards for sensitive imports don't work. So commissioners have been saying they're just being extra cautious with this.
Mm-hmm. And so one of the points that the commissioners try to get across is that this deal is beneficial to everybody, because at the moment we're currently importing tons and tons of different goods, and we're doing so at very high tariffs. So what this deal does is bringing down tariffs and potentially opening up a market for countries like Italy or France that already, export a lot of different goods. So do you think that how much is ideology playing into this, or what are the other concerns in the picture?
Yeah, I mean, it was interesting to see how in the debate Šefčovič kept going to data and pointing to this market with untapped potential for some products. He said that Mercosur can allow the EU to continue being like a big food exporter. But still, we've mentioned divisions across political parties, but there are also divisions across the food chain. It's not the same. There's winners on one side and losers as well. I think actually Hansen said so. Chocolate, spirits, wine can be very much benefited for the deal, but it's not the same about beef. One of the MEPs who was the most harsh in the hearing was from Ireland, mentioning the beef sector. MEPs from Ireland are saying that the deal can deal a blow to the livestock sector there. And then Hansen said, but have you talked to dairy farmers? Right. But then the MEP was referring to beef producers. So, yeah, it's a bit tricky, let's say.
Yes, there was definitely some confusion there. And I think this misunderstanding speaks to the fragmentation that Mercosur has created across countries, parties, and even supply chains. So that what could be beneficial to dairy farmers, could then be harmful for beef producers. One of the fears producers have concerns the defense of GI products, traditional local excellencies, and how they will be protected, right?
Well, when MEPs raised the question of different production standards and like the deal being unfair for EU farmers who need to follow stricter requirements, Hansen was a bit sensitive because the farming commissioner is trying to make this issue one of his hallmarks. Or at least that's what we've been seeing in the past weeks. He is open to the EU becoming a bit more stricter when it comes to food import controls. So, for example, for maximum residue levels that are allowed in food that comes into the EU from third countries, he would like to lower those allowed quantities. So this was used again as an argument to reassure MEPs that he will do his utmost to find a balance.
They were not reassured, though.
Not at all. I mean, you saw we spoke to several of them afterwards. There is all the uncertainty around the 1 billion, but some are also saying that the impact assessment is not specific enough, or that, even better, that it doesn't tackle the member state specificities.
Yes, exactly. This is how Ksenia Simovic, a senior policy advisor at Copa Cogeca, commented.
On the impact assessment, we haven't really seen anything new. The latest thing that we have seen was this GRC study from last February. That is not complete for us. A lot has changed from 2019 as to where the impact might be. Also different for each member states, and taking into consideration these sensitive sectors, because for most of them the situation has unfortunately worsened in the last 4 years.
And what about environmental concerns?
One of the parts of the deal that both Šefčovič and Hansen were hailing is the fact that this political agreement that was reached in December has stronger sustainability commitments than the one that was reached in 2019. But still, it is not enough for most Agri Committee members, because they're more concerned on the potential market distortions that we've been mentioning, rather than, let's say, the Paris Agreement, which has become an essential part of the deal.
Looking ahead now, what's next in the hemicycle?
Yes, so we'll have to see, because last week we were hearing Agri MEPs being pretty harsh with the commissioners and questioning the deal, but this is only one committee. If we look at the whole hemicycle, it is a bit unclear. Interestingly, there's an amendment that was voted in November that could be read as a plebiscite for the Mercosur agreement, for support towards the deal. But it was a bit tight, to be honest. A lot of MEPs didn't vote. Again, as we said, a lot of divisions within groups. So we'll have to stay tuned and read between the lines and see.
Thank you, Maria.
Thank you, Giada.
This was Euractiv's podcast, Today in the EU. Sound design by Miriam Sáenz de Tejada, research and production by Charles Cohen. Visit Euractiv to stay on top of the latest news and sign up for our newsletters. You can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and your favorite streaming platforms. Don't forget to subscribe and give us a review. It will really help us spread the word about our work. See you tomorrow. As part of our commitment to accuracy, inclusion, and transparency, Euractiv is part of the Trust Project.